On today's episode of the Broadway Shuffle, Micah Hudson enters the transfer portal. We say goodbye to Tim DeRuyter, and our football team stomps West Virginia. That and much more next on the Broadway Shuffle. Okay, welcome to episode 31 of the Broadway Shuffle. We've got Conrad, Clayton, and Zyler. I'm Brennan, and Red Raiders, we are coming off a fresh stomp of West Virginia, 52-15 in the Jones this weekend. But unfortunately, that is not the biggest news from the weekend. We are recording this on a Sunday night. You will listen to it Monday morning. And about 20 minutes ago, Micah Hudson entered the transfer portal. So we are going to shift our attention to an unceremonious end to the Micah Hudson era at Texas Tech. We got about 3 plays out of him, fellas. So Zyler, I'm going to go to you first. You've been kind of tracking this for a while. Thoughts on Hudson? Kind of give some insight into what you know on how this came about, and where does Tech go from here when it comes to NIL and recruiting for a 5-star athlete?
Yeah, I don't know that there's any way that you can spin this positively, and I don't think I'll make that effort. I think if you had been paying attention to this little saga for the last 4 to 5 weeks, this shouldn't necessarily come as a surprise. I remember the first kind of indicator that I had was at I believe it was the Colorado game. Actually, I think it was the Baylor game he didn't suit up for. And he was in a boot, but he was walking like he didn't need a boot. It was kind of like that girl in high school that always had injuries, and you're like, you don't really need that. You're walking just fine. And he was walking around. I was like, okay, it looks like he's fine. There's no reason that he should be out. And then he was out still for another 4 to 5 weeks. I'm like, okay, I don't think he's actually hurt. I think he's sitting out and probably planning on leaving. And then he, wasn't present at the game on Saturday. I don't know if anybody was aware of that, but that news leaked early Saturday morning that he was not, in fact, at Jones AT&T. So writing was kind of on the wall. No way to spin it positively. It sucks. He's going to be a really good player. He flashed at times when he got opportunities. Frustrating situation. I'm sure there's going to be 2 wildly different accounts of what happened here. But yeah, lots to unpack, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this in the coming weeks.
Yeah, Clayton, our first episode, like our preview episode for Abilene Christian, I think we did an over-under segment on Micah Hudson having 5 catches or less. I think he ended up totaling 8 catches for you on the season. No touchdowns, really wasn't involved at all in the offense ever. I mean, the expectation versus reality here was wild. Like, what do you make of this? What does it mean for your program specifically? And I mean, should we be disappointed? Like, we didn't really get to see him enough to feel like we're losing some star. We don't really know what he is in the collegiate level yet. Is there a level of concern for you there, or are you just like, let's find the next guy?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely fair to be disappointed by this and how the season went. You're right. I still don't know if we even know like how good Micah Hudson actually is a player. He just didn't get on the field enough this year to see that right now. And Zyler is exactly right. Like, there's no way to say that this is a positive for the program, but I think it remains to be seen how much of a negative this is. Like, I know a lot of people will say, oh, like, this is really going to negatively affect you trying to get 5 stars in the future. I don't know if I necessarily believe that there will be a 5-star considering Tech in the future that's going to look at Micah Hudson's playing time and choose elsewhere. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not going to say it helps you, but I don't know how much it really negatively affects the program. But it's definitely fair to be disappointed. But I'm not really going to make any like rash decisions on the coaching staff as far as how they handled this.
Do you feel like this is more of a Micah Hudson decision, or, I mean, obviously it's a decision for him to enter the portal, but do you think this was more, I'm out of here, or do you think the coaching staff was more like, hey, this guy's not getting the playbook right, he's not putting in the effort, he doesn't want to be here, like, we need people in the building we want? I mean, it felt like there were 2 conflicting stories a lot this year on Hudson. And Conrad, I'll go to you on the blame in a second as well. But, Joey McGuire said this was the best player on your football team before the season started. And so the expectations for Texas Tech fans was, we're getting a 5-star who's going to come in and make an immediate impact. That didn't happen. And I think that's what's so frustrating about the situation is you're going to say this. We get excited. We have Josh Kelly, Micah Hudson, all these guys coming in. We don't see them. And and maybe that pisses off Hudson. I don't know. Conrad, is this NIL, babe, 18-year-old kids? Like, we're talking about a kid here. But gosh, I mean, it seems like there was some mismanagement here. I might be wrong.
A day after we go 8-4 and clinch our best regular season since 2009 and have a third straight year of winning record in conference, I don't know that I can bring myself right now to go in on the coaching staff just because of what we've experienced, which was something we haven't experienced since I was in middle school, which is an 8-win regular season. So I think there's blame to go in on the coaches. I just want to be very maybe calculated about that, because we, at the end of the day, have a Texas Tech sports podcast. We are not in the building every day. We don't know everything that went on. I do want to caution Texas Tech fans to say, oh, this is immediately the coaching staff's fault. There's two parties here. One of them are grown adults who have been living in this world, making money in this world, providing for their families. And the other is an 18-year-old kid who just left high school, got way too much money that he doesn't even know what to do with, that he honestly hasn't earned or doesn't even deserve. And so you've got two parties right next to each other that are going to say conflicting things over the next few weeks, if they say anything at all. We have to remember, too, that Micah Hudson was not cleared until August 31st. I was very on record with saying I am so excited to see what he's going to be. I thought his talent was clear, but the reality is he never did anything to earn the money. He never actually did anything to earn necessarily playing time on the field, even though he did flash at certain points. But it's been reported that he didn't know the playbook that well, that they couldn't put him out there because they didn't trust him in other places. And if that's true, again, I don't know if it's true, but you cannot just say this is 100% on the coaches, because there's two sides to every story. And I would be willing to bet you that if he showed any type of, not any, but a smidge of knowledge of what you're trying to do on offense from a schematic standpoint, that he maybe would have played more. My tune was different during the season, but now that I've had time to reflect on it, it's like, well, if a kid doesn't know what he's doing, can you really trust him to put him out there? Again, I don't know if that's true, but it just feels like there's a lot of moving parts to the story. And, with him leaving, I think that is a direct correlation between, I don't know what was promised in recruiting. Was he promised to see the field 60% of the time while we were on offense? What was he promised? Again, I don't know. None of us do. But the reality of the situation is, I guarantee you other places were probably reaching out to him during the season. They're not supposed to, but I'm sure they were. I mean, it's been well documented. That does happen from time to time. And so it's just the new era of college football, which I honestly, there's some positives about it, but some negatives about it as well. I just don't know that you ever really got a fair shot with him, because he is a guy that can enter the portal, go get hundreds of thousands of dollars, even as an unproven talent in college football. So there's a lot to unpack there. I hope that's helpful for some people, but we'll have to see where it goes from here. Brennan, what are your thoughts on Micah?
Well,
do you think it's obviously sad to lose him, but do you think it's a direct correlation to the coaching staff? Do you think it's Micah? What are your thoughts on the situation?
No. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm blaming Joey or Kitley or anyone for that matter on the coaching staff for, a kid choosing to transfer. I mean, this guy's got a lot in his ear. He's got money. He's got popularity. I mean, I'm not saying it was all. What my biggest question was, how Joey discussed him earlier in the offseason, getting into the season. Was it a mismanagement of expectations, maybe even for Micah? Because Micah hears this. He hears, I'm the best player on this football team. And then he goes out and sees 8 catches all season. So it's kind of like, where is your and I believe that's correct. You can fact check me, but I thought I saw that earlier today. I don't know how to feel about it. I mean, it's disappointing for your university, because this was your first 5-star. He was one of the best recruits in the country. You get him, you hear all year, well, he plays Josh Kelly's position. And so, he's not going to start over Kelly. And we kind of got that. But at the end of the day, coming off of an 8-win season, I'm not going to let it ruin my mood too much, because we didn't see, to Clayton's point, this star-studded. He's not Ryan Williams. Like, he's not Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State or Ryan Williams at Alabama. He didn't showcase this top-level talent yet. He might, if he goes to a school in Texas, I hope he doesn't. But we didn't see what some of these other 5-star freshmen were showing at their university. So I'm not just as beat up about it, other than I think it hurts for your program in the sense that you had a 5-star and you lost them. Like, it's kind of like the basketball team when you had Kayvon Moore. Some of these guys come in, and I mean, they were useless dudes at the end of the day. They didn't really do anything for you, but it was like, oh, we had a 5-star, near Monty Burnett, and then where are those guys now? Like, there's not and I know it's a different sport, but there's not a guarantee they're going to turn into a top level receiver and first round draft pick. So, Z, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that'll go out there. I don't know that there's any real grounds to make an accusation on the coaching staff saying that they play guys based on seniority. You look at last year, we were starting 3 true freshmen in the secondary. You saw BJ Jordan, Chapman Lewis, Jordan Sanford played a ton. We saw Jacoby Williams as a true freshman play a ton this year. You saw Cam Dickey play a ton before he got hurt. Jacob Ponton's getting in there. It's not, this coaching staff has no problem with a meritocracy and playing guys that are beating other people. They've got no problem with that. That makes me think that there maybe is something to be said for, he was just not there yet mentally. And then also, man, he was out for 9 months, or I guess not 9, 7 months. Like, that is going to take some time to acclimate and get used to the receivers. Like, that affects your ability to get on the field. It would affect anybody. If Jeremiah Smith was out till August 31st, he would not have been nearly as effective as he is now. There's plenty of 5-star receivers not getting utilized in the way they probably thought they were going to. It's a brand new ball game when you get to play with 21, 22, and 23-year-olds. Those guys have been in college weight programs for 4 to 5 years. I'm not saying Micah's not a special talent. He clearly, and I think is. I think he'll go on to have a great college career, and I hope he chooses to come back to Tech. That would be awesome. But I don't. Where I blame more, or I put more blame, is Joey. Talking about Micah being the best player on the team, if this was clearly where the situation was, right? Like, if you knew that he's struggling to grasp play, and maybe you didn't know that till he got out on the field. I don't think, Joey lies. I just think he says a lot of things that he believes. And I think he probably did believe that. I mean, Micah is a really good player. His high school film is some of the best you'll ever see. I mean, genuinely unbelievable stuff. But I think that's where the expectations got misaligned. We were led to believe Micah would probably be starting, playing a ton, doing all this. And then I remember about a week before the season started, I had a guy text me and said, dude, I don't know that Mike is going to play at all in the opener. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Like, maybe there are some truth to the rumors that he's not coming along as quickly as they expected. I'll be interested to hear what comes out from both camps after this. What was promised by the coaching staff, what they thought of Micah. We'll probably never get a true response, but interesting stuff nonetheless.
It was interesting to me texting with a friend of mine who is as much of a Longhorn as they come. And we were talking about the situation. I was kind of sharing with him some of the stuff that had, been accused about Micah, maybe not knowing the playbook, maybe not, all those different things that we just mentioned. And he brought I thought, a good example of a 5-star receiver that just didn't even work out at Texas, which was Jonte Cook, who was a 5-star from DeSoto, left the program midseason. He's in the portal. Yep. He may go to, I don't know if he's going to go to A&M, Oregon. I have no clue where he's going to go. This guy, from what I was told,
at A&M.
Yeah, Evan Stewart. I mean, honestly though, Jonte Cook is not a guy you want. Yeah, it's just like 5-star receivers, and what he said was that receivers more than anything are divas, right? Like, that's kind of what they're known for. It's like they want the ball. If they don't get the ball, they're not happy, and everybody else is the problem. That's kind of the common perception of talented receivers, and sometimes they're right in sense of get me the ball more, we'll win more. Like, if, speaking about, top receivers, if, Ryan Williams didn't get the ball as much, or Jeremiah Smith didn't get the ball as much, their teams are not going to be as successful as they, could have been if they did. So it's just one of those things that maybe not every place is a fit for every guy. And so, maybe the fact that Micah didn't work out here, at least it seems, may not be as much of an indictment on you as it might be on him, even though that may not make some people comfortable with the situation.
Yeah, and we'll get into this on a later episode, but to the diva point, these kids with just the self-promotion that's going on now, it's just not healthy. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for players being compensated off their name. I'm not a huge advocate for players being compensated from a university donor and who knows, Z, to your point, like what they told Micah, in the offseason. Yep. And I think, Joey, this is where we this is where Joey gets judged a lot, and he hasn't always been right, but but he has helped rejuvenate. He feels like he has to almost be a cheerleader, I think, sometimes for the program. Getting this program excited again was part of his job. And when you got your first 5-star, and he had a great recruiting class and all this stuff, and Micah comes in, I think it was just natural for him to be like, best player we have on our team. Like, get excited for Micah Hudson. Micah Hudson's going to be a stud here. And it looks like he spoke too soon. I don't necessarily blame him for that. I want to kind of hear what comes out and do more digging on what were the pre-conversations, what were the expectations, and then make a final judgment on who's really to blame. But I don't blame the coaching staff for a decision that an 18-year-old kid makes, because that's who they are. They're all, and a lot of these kids are self-promoting now. I mean, you see it. I think there's a direct correlation to NIL and what's going on the field. Like, you're watching these brawls from this weekend, and you're watching these receivers, and people go, it just doesn't seem like the sport is in a healthy environment across the whole. But that's something we can get into later. So, Clayton, any final thoughts on Hudson or any disagreements on what I just said?
No, I feel like we hit on everything. I guess one last thing I would say is, like, we're definitely looking for someone to blame right now, but like, there will be literally thousands of other kids enter the transfer portal. Maybe not all of them as talented as Micah Hudson, but this is just how college athletics work right now. So there's not necessarily anyone that needs to, take the blame on this.
Yeah. The anxiety ticker starts day one, Conrad.
This hurts your online perception more than it hurts anything else in your program. Like, you're losing a guy that, I don't even know if he had 200 yards on this season. Obviously, you're looking forward to what he could have been, but you went 8-4 without him. Not saying that you wouldn't want to have him. You would love to have this kid. I definitely don't want to say that. I'd love for Micah to be a Red Raider, but you'll be fine. You won football games without 5 stars. You won football games this year without a 5-star receiver. You will continue to win football games. You'll move on and you'll be okay. It just sucks for, to be online and hear people say stuff. But okay, well, I do have one other note. If he's thinking about going to A&M, like, I do not know that Colin Klein is the offensive coordinator that you want to be associating yourself with if you want to maximize your talent. I know we all watched that game. Like, Marcel Reed is not going to get you the ball in space. Like, that is not where I would be looking to attend.
And if he's going to UT, they have.
I've heard LSU is a rumor as well.
Yeah, perfect. Go play for or whoever it is now, Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
It seems like it'll be a really fun time. Go enjoy your time in Baton Rouge.
Well, and the thing too, like, thinking about it is, like, Zyler, you said exactly what I was going to say. Like, you went 8-4 without him. Like, sorry, Micah. Like, I'm not saying we don't need you, because, like, we could definitely use you. Like, you're a great talent, but we had the best season we've had since 2009 without you, basically. So, like, it's not like you're losing like it's not like Todd has a year left and he's choosing to go in the portal. Like, your actual best player who's on your roster.
I keep thinking of the last thing I'm going to say, so apologies for the third time I've said this, but I just look at the staff, and especially on offense, their willingness to play young guys, and we were continuing to trot Dre McRae out there, and I just don't believe this staff, if Micah truly could have helped you in a number of ways without them being gadget plays, I don't think they were just sitting him because they have some sort of respect for Dre McRae or Coy Aiken. I think the guys that were out there deserve to be out there, and we're playing better and practicing better, and we're going to help you more. So I don't think that there was any mismanagement. I mean, maybe you needed to scheme more up for your 5-star. That probably should have happened. But the more I think about it, the less I'm going to blame the offensive scheme or production for Micah's departure.
Yeah. And we're thinking about this live. Like, I said, this has been out for 45 minutes. So we're all just now processing this information. And you'll hear it again on the Broadway Shuffle YouTube channel or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast tomorrow morning. And make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. But you definitely... Again, we haven't even mentioned this, but Josh Kelly, like, you just had your first 1,000-yard receiver in 6 seasons, and you got him from the portal, and he was a proven guy, and he came in and played well for you. So, and if it was true that Micah Hudson was right below him and he wasn't as good as Josh, well, then you could probably go find someone like Josh to come fill that spot again and be productive. It doesn't necessarily mean that Micah Hudson was going to take you from, like, even Ryan Williams, Bama didn't go 12-0 this year. Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State didn't go 12-0 this year. So a one receiver doesn't change a program. I'd like to have a 5-star offensive tackle more than I would a 5-star slot receiver, in my personal opinion. So I think we do need to kind of realize like what we're losing, find out what we won't know until a couple years what we really lost. And I think that's where it's kind of like, you just don't know. I don't want to blame Joey. The only thing I'd say on Joey is just the hype train surrounding Micah prior to the season. That's my final thought on that. And I will get into this more in the offseason, but that was really the only, concern I had from the coaching staff. So,
and I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right, Conrad, final thought on Hudson. We got a lot to get into.
Even looking back on it, like, you can say Joey maybe says too much or hypes up his team or his players. I think the last thing I'm going to fault the head coach for is believing in his team and believing in his players. I'm good with that. Even if it doesn't work out, I'll take the losses there. I'd rather have Joey talking about how much he believes in his guys than a head coach that won't say anything. Last thought on Micah for me. Reality of the situation is, if you want to be at Texas Tech, we want you at Texas Tech. If you don't want to be at Texas Tech, go somewhere else. Like we were fine before you. We'll be fine after you. Again, not trying to act like having a 5-star is not a big deal, but it's if you want to be here, we want you here. If you don't want to be here, we don't want we don't need you. Like it's fine. You can go do what you need to do, and hope you have success. But we'll be okay. So, we'll still produce receivers regardless of if you're here or not, or any other type of player.
Yeah.
So
maybe Micah was given really good pregame talks, and he's the reason we went 8-4 for the first time, and it had nothing to do with his skill. So
we haven't thought of that.
Maybe Micah is the reason. We weren't fine before him, and we won't be fine after him. I don't know. So
that kid has no personality, just from what I can tell.
Well, and there's a personal shot I've been waiting 20 minutes for this episode.
That's just the fact. Sorry. Okay. Okay.
Well, again, it's fine to process, man. We're going through. But one thing that will be different, that we weren't really sure next year if this was going to happen or not after Saturday's result, was Tim DeRuyter is no longer your defensive coordinator, and Marcel Yates is no longer your secondary coach. So some clear problems on the defensive side of the ball this year. But after the West Virginia game, 3 turnovers, 15 points, the defense, it was a weird enigma this year for Tech sports. Like you can make an argument that 2 of your biggest wins, or really 3. I mean, Arizona State, look what they had, 22 points. Arizona, 21 points, big win on the road. And Iowa State, can't remember exactly the final score, but around the low 20s.
23-22.
23-22. Okay, your defense played well. So this is a weird thing. It's like you also gave up, and I know we got it here, 51 at home, 44 at home, 59 at home, 41 on the road. So, Clayton, I'll come to you first. Thoughts on the DeRuyter firing, right move, wrong move? Would you have liked to see him go, and any idea on where Joey goes from here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously never happy when someone loses their job. There are people too, but I am not going to be super upset about him not coaching our defense next year. I don't think he showed a lot of improvement from the first time he stepped foot on Tech's campus to now. Obviously, this year was the youngest defense we had, and we had a lot of injuries. So, if this year was an anomaly, I would have given him a pass. But like we talked about on earlier episodes, the previous 2 years, it's not like our defenses were incredible or like carrying us to wins. They were, average to slightly above average in cases. So when your defense is as bad as it was this year, and it was straight up awful, I think we finished the season at like 93rd in SP plus defensively. Yep. There's going to be changes to be made. I'm not going to be super broken up about it.
Z.
Yeah, I think on the course of the season, DeRuyter has some excuses for why this unit maybe wasn't as good as he was hoping. You lost 6 of your 8 guys on the 2 deep on the defensive line. You were banged up in the secondary all season. Lux was in and out of the lineup. Horn was in and out of the lineup. You just had injuries kind of all over the place. The thing that I go back to is when your defense was the healthiest was ACU, and that was, what I think was probably the worst defensive performance of the year. You were just completely unequipped. The secondary has been, the longer the season has gone on, the more I've realized it's not all the lack of pressure. Our secondary is continually just confused about the calls. It feels like one half of the field is running something that the other half is not. You've just been a little bit out of sorts there. Man, I do feel for Tim. I think the 2022 defense is a bit of an anomaly when you have a top 10 defensive end. That makes a lot of different players look really, really good.
Mhm.
And they deserve credit for turning Tyree Wilson into what they turned him into. But it's, that year you've gotten worse since then. I think it's warranted. We had heard from some people close to the program that if the North Texas game went poorly, that DeRuyter was going to be fired after that game. And then obviously we crushed him and he remained on. But I think this was probably in the works for a while. And if you've been listening to Joey's press conferences, you probably had a decent idea this was coming. He was talking about, we're going to look in the mirror, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We're really going to look and see if we need to make change. And it was like very obvious. And I think Joey probably handled it well. Tim even said stuff, I think it was, I can't remember which game he had the presser, but he was talking like, if the defense continues to play like this, I'm not going to have a job. Like, he was aware that this was going poorly. To his credit, though, man, it's an extremely young defense, and they were ransacked by injuries. I don't think he is a coordinator that's top 100 in the nation. Like, he is better than what we finished at, but I think this shows that Joey's not content with, being an 8-4 team. This is clearly the best defensive coordinator you've had since the Leach years, and you just fired him. Joey's looking to not be a mediocre not be mediocre on defense. I think he'd love to run the 3-3-5. I think you've recruited more to the 3-3-5 than you have the 4-2-5 that we traditionally run. Now, you're going to need to find some really dominant defensive tackles if that's what you decide to end up running. But that's Joey's bread and butter, and that's kind of what he knows. I'll be interested to see where they go from this. Firing's not unmerited. I do feel bad for DeRuyter. I think he was a nice guy, always give good answers, but I understand why it happened. Tough to see him go, though.
Yeah, Conrad, it's hard for me to process. To Zyler's point, Joey doesn't want to be stuck in mediocrity, and you just go 8-4. But the timing's a little weird to me. Just like the day after the celebration, like it was almost like boom. Here's this news at 4:00 this afternoon, and he's gone after your best win in 15 years, and he's like, no, we're getting right to this. Is that, you think that's Porter related? And then obviously share your thoughts on DeRuyter and his time here as well.
In this day and age, everything's portal related. I mean, you can't escape the portal. You can't escape how college athletics operates now. And so absolutely it was portal related. I mean, like Zyler mentioned, you listen to Joey's pressers as we have for weeks here, you're gonna notice some discontentment with the defensive side of the ball. Joey's a defensive coach. He's said all year that we got to play better on defense. Even after Washington State, where your offense put your defense in some bad spots, he continuously said the defense has to play better. We felt like maybe that was unmerited because of what the offense did that game. That's neither here nor there at this point. When you finish, I get it about the injuries. I get it about being a young defense. But when you finish 120th in the country, allowing 34 points per game out of 133, by the way, and you give up, you're in the 123rd in the country, giving up 451 yards per game. And then you're 132nd in passing yards, given up at 305 yards per game. It's like, you got to, like,
you're speechless.
I don't know what else to say. And to y'all's point, like Tim does seem to be a nice guy, but any coach that's going to get paid any person that's going to get paid over $700,000, that's 700,000 next year, not to work. I mean, it's hard for me to feel bad for him. Like, just being totally honest.
You'd probably take 80K. You'd probably take 80K not to work,
dude. It'd be a lot less.
Buddy, my number's lower than that.
Yeah. I mean, no, but it's just that's where I don't like. I get it. Tim seemed like to be a really good guy, but if you told me if I got called to my boss's office tomorrow and said, "Hey, I'm going to pay you. We're going to do the buyout, and you're going to get paid $700,000 not to work," because he was scheduled to make north of 1.1 next year, and he had a year left on his. That's hard for me to feel. And maybe that's me being insensitive. Like, I get it. He lives in Lubbock. He's got relationships with people, like all that. But that's just kind of what you sign up for with collegiate athletics. But again, those numbers, 120th in the country, 123rd in the country, 132nd in passing yards given up. I mean, I get all the excuses, but someone has to take the fall.
Yeah.
And it has to be the coordinator at the end of the day.
Yeah. And the youth excuse only goes so far. Like, I get it. You were banged up across the board. And you had tight ends playing defensive end at time this year. You had true freshmen. You had dudes that you just were not expecting to see. And then you had people digress too, like Ben Roberts, not what I probably thought he was going to be this year. Even guys like Braylon Lux were injured on and off and really couldn't become the shutdown corner we thought. I don't disagree with the move, and I applaud Joey for making it and being like, we need the best. To your point on the money, if you want to be out of the mediocrity type level, you have to be able to pay your coordinators top dollars. And right now, more than ever, we're seeing this in college football. Gus Malzahn said, I don't want to be a head coach. Let me just go coach offense at Florida State.
Geez.
Chip Kelly is saying, I don't want to be a head coach. Let me just go coach offense at Ohio State. You can get now more than ever, and maybe it's Porter related. I don't really know, but I assume that's what it is. You can get top defensive and offensive minds in the NFL and college to just coach, build it up, do what you're good at, what you know, and win me football games. And right now, guys are doing that. So I'd like to see, we're talking about money and NIL money, the Matador Club and all this stuff. I think Joey has been giving a budget to go get top coordinator talent and pay them premium dollars to win. And if that's where you're at and that's where you want this program to go, I'm excited to see who you can pull from that, because they're going to be paid very well to be one of the best defensive coordinators, hopefully, in the Big 12.
And
go ahead, Clayton.
I was just going to say, I mean, DeRuyter and Kitley were that to we stole DeRuyter from Oregon. I don't think in the past we would have been able to do that. And Kitley, I know he came from Western Kentucky, but he had other offers. He had SEC offers coming in. And then last thing I'll say is I've seen a lot of people being like, I thought yesterday saved his job because of his performance against West Virginia. I just want to say that I'm glad that McGuire is not allowing one game against West Virginia to sway his decision either way. You have a 37 or whatever game sample size of Tim DeRuyter. Like, if you feel strongly one way, don't let the last game of the year change your mind on that.
Joey watched the Colorado-Oklahoma State game and said, "Oh my gosh, I have to fire my defensive coordinator."
Dude, yeah, we made that true freshman look like Heisman Marcus Mariota. I mean, it was embarrassing. Then that he goes and puts an egg against Colorado.
The other thing, and I hope that and Joey has seemed very thoughtful in the way that he's done this. The portal is opening tomorrow. If you are recruiting guys for a specific kind of defense that's going to be different than what you run, I hope that you are moving really quickly. This isn't going to be somebody that I hope you hire in January. Like, you need to be getting in. This is your time, from December to January 6th or whatever it is when classes start. That's the time that you have if you need to supplement your roster. If you're going to go to a 3-3-5, you're going to need to recruit some different kind of defensive linemen. You were going to need to do that anyway, but you're going to want your DC to be in here quickly. And I imagine he's already got his eye on a few people. So don't be shocked to see this, kind of move forward pretty quickly. That would just be the other thing. I hope this isn't like a 3-week search. That would be frustrating.
Conrad, before you go, Z, do you feel like, how Dave Aranda was like, I need to have more say on the defensive side of the ball or get back to my roots? And Joey is a defensive-minded coach. Do you see him increasing his involvement in the defense next year?
I hope not. I hope he continues to maintain just head coaching roles. Aranda's unique because he's called collegiate defenses and he draws up some pretty wicked stuff. Like, if you're into the schematics of college defenses and how you do kind of unique things, like Aranda really is pretty talented. The stuff he was running at LSU and that some of the early and now in the later days at Baylor, it is really creative, and they'll continue to be a good defense as long as he's involved. I don't know that Joey has the play calling chops to do that. I think his talent is more in management, and at least how I perceive it. I'm not saying he couldn't call a defense, but that's not necessarily where I've heard his strengths are.
Okay. Conrad, man, do we wish that Aranda went 4-8 this year and would be looking for a defensive coordinator job? Maybe.
Dude, I wish Aranda went 0-12 this year. Like, of course it's Baylor, man. I think people need to realize too, you don't make $1 million decisions like this one. Some you do, right? If you're going to leave, for a head coaching job, whatever, a different, you're going to leave, you're a head coach, you get a call, after the season's over or during the season, whatever. You make those decisions maybe sometimes pretty quickly, but I don't think you fire a defensive coordinator like you make that decision yesterday at 3:30. Like Zyler mentioned earlier this episode, this has got to be a conversation, because you're not going to fire a guy that you're going to have to pay upwards of $700,000 to if you don't know that you have another million to $1.5 million to go get the guy you want to replace him. Like, this had to be a conversation with Kirby Hocutt, with maybe even our dear friend and dear listener Robert Giovanetti. I mean, this had to have been like a large conversation with a lot of different people, donors, different things like that. So man, it's tough because you want to do what's best for the program, and if you really feel like the reason that you didn't get to where you wanted to go this year was your defense, and you had a chance to play in the Big 12 championship, it's just really that's why you made this decision at the end of the day. And so I think he made this decision. This is something that he's definitely been thinking about. And so if he's going to make this decision after leading Texas Tech to the best 3-year record under a head coach to start, I'm going to trust him.
Well, you lose your 5-star receiver, you lose your defensive coordinator. You didn't lose to West Virginia, though. And so
very professional, Brennan. That was well done.
That was nice.
Thank you, guys. 31 episodes, you'd expect me to get a little better. So you guys were there, Zyler and Clayton. I'll go to you guys first. The Jones, Z, you texted. I think you texted like
I have to confess.
You were like, there might not be 1,000 students here. The vibes are bad, but it seems like it actually turned out to be a little more lit than you thought. How was it in the Jones? And you can go into your thoughts on the game.
I think I've got to re-examine my pessimism, but I was walking into the stadium. I saw the injury report. I saw Harvey Dyson, DB Carroll, Quincy Ledet out. I get a text and my buddy's like, hey, Micah's not here. I'm like, dude, the vibes are terrible. I walk in, there are like, I'm not kidding, like 125 students. I was like, dude, West Virginia is about to pound us into the ground. Our 5-star receiver is going to leave. Like, this is going to be an awful weekend. So I texted and said the vibes are bad. I sit with a buddy of mine and his wife Caleb, and I looked over at him and I said, "What are your predictions for the game?" And he goes, "We win by 40." I said, "Dude, we're going to get killed." And oddly enough, he ended up being right, and so I was thankful for that. It actually ended up being a pretty good environment, considering it was a Thanksgiving. 2 days after Thanksgiving, 11 a.m. The weather was great. The team played freaking amazing. You could not have asked for a better senior day. Baskerville had a ton of good plays. I mean, that interception was unreal. Tharp had what should have been one of the catches of the year that was, for whatever reason, not overturned. Taj Brooks has his best game of the season. If that is Jacob Rodriguez's last game, he was excellent again. You just had a lot of seniors contribute. That's really fun. And it was a stress-free game, basically, for the entire second half. Couldn't have asked for a better last game of the season.
Clay?
Yeah, I mean, I echo pretty much everything Zyler thought. Environment was pretty good. It's tough for us to have an 11 a.m. game on the Saturday after Thanksgiving because nobody's, going to be able to drive in before the game. And so people are just going to stay wherever their home is. But I mean, you can't really ask for more. The seniors played well. Taj was incredible, like Zyler said. I wish we had started using Taj in the pass game as much as we did the last 2 games. That's been a cheat code. I don't know where that was the last 2 years, but he played really well. And Mason Tharp should have had one of the catches of the year, got robbed, and no complaints as far as the game goes.
Yeah, Todd Brooks, he might have improved his draft stock by showing his ability to catch out of the backfield and do some things because we hadn't seen a lot of that, and that's key in the NFL. Now, the 11 a.m. games, a lot of people hate them. Some people, here on this podcast, pray we don't have them. Your 2 11 a.m. home games this year, though, you outscored your opponents, and I have to do my Texas Tech math here, so I might be wrong. I want to say it was 118 to 36.
Something like that, yeah.
Was your score against UNT?
A lot to a little.
A lot to a little is an easier way to put it. So, Conrad, I mean, it was nice watching a Texas Tech game and feeling almost zero anxiety. Like this was, it was this one at UNT. You had 2 weeks off this year as a Tech fan where you could sit back and relax. What was it like for you watching this game?
That's a great question, Brennan. I actually got a call from my father-in-law about, I think it was maybe 8 minutes left in the game, and I'm still glued to the TV, sitting on the edge of the couch, enjoying every single second. He goes, "Did you just see what happened in the Michigan-Ohio State game?" And I said, no, like, I don't care about that game. I am enjoying every single second of this. This never happens. So I'm going to enjoy every single second. It was amazing. It was just so nice knowing that not only did I thought you were the better team going into it, but watching the game and even looking at the box score. I mean, you had 568 total yards. You had 359 passing yards, 209 rushing. I mean, you just imposed whatever you wanted to do against West Virginia. And, I probably from after you had those 2 field goals early that you couldn't get in the end zone. But after that, I mean, you absolutely obliterated the West Virginia Mountaineers. And to Clayton's, point, he said many times on the podcast, I feel like we save coaches' jobs. This time we did it right. Neil Brown, you are an offensive analyst at Texas Tech University next year. Sign the contract and get it over to us. We'll get it to Joey. It was just really cool. I think it was the perfect explanation to a roller coaster ride. I mean, you had the lowest of lows week 1, winning by 1 point against ACU, and then you come to the last Saturday, senior day. Taj has a great game. CJ has that awesome pick. Jacob Rodriguez plays well, as he always does. You started the season at a low point, even though you won, and then you ended the season at an absolute high with playing your best complete game of the year. So was really happy with how that went, and think that can only mean good things for your football team, the players that are here that choose to be here going forward.
Yeah, nice subtle dig there. It was sentimental, man. Like I thought Joey's send off for Taj was awesome. I was watching and I just took a minute to really soak that in on television. Like, I think we look back, right? We were kids and we look back at Crabtree and Harrell and the glory days, and we look at all these great legendary players and go like, man, I wish I got to see those guys. Or we look at Mahomes, but Taj is something special for your university as well. And I really wanted to soak in, because I don't know if he's going to play in the bowl game. I wouldn't if I was him. So, I would just to watch that run, watch this kid, what he was able to do, being your all-time leading rusher. It was special to watch. Conyers, again, I was last week. I'm like, why do we not use this? Why do we not use this kid more this year? Like, where in the passing game, he was awesome for you again. He's a total just athlete. Like, I think he'll be able to play in the NFL, and seeing Mason Tharp,
he'll catch balls from Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he probably will. So to your point, it was a really fun game. And even though this season doesn't feel like 8-4, like it felt like each week you could have lost, almost, and it could have been a disaster, and it wasn't. And that's credit to Joey, credit to these kids that just fought their rear ends off and didn't give up, and found a way to win in Stillwater and then go out and just blow out West Virginia. And 8 wins, first time in 15 years, 6 conference wins. I mean, that's just not easy to do. And I know the Big 12 looks a little more inflated because you have other teams like TCU went 8-4, Baylor went 8-4, Iowa State 10 wins, Arizona State 10 wins, Colorado 9 wins, BYU 10 wins. Like, there was a lot of solid teams this year. And guess what? The 2 teams that are playing in the Big 12 championship now, you beat. And so you beat 2 10-win teams. And you were, at this point, looking at how it turned out, you wouldn't have made it anyways, but you were like a couple bounces away and really just beating TCU from having I'm right. Yeah. You were a fumble away, essentially, in a 17 blown lead in Fort Worth from playing in Arlington this year. That's how close you were. With with every pain point you had on defense, with every comment you had about the offense, people on Tech Twitter and RRS and all this stuff about Kitley, like, dude, you just dropped 108 points in 2 weeks. Like, I don't care who you're playing. That's hard to do. So, it's awesome. It's sad in a way because I don't want to see Taj go, but man, what a game. And I hope you find a way to get 9 wins in a bowl game. I'll say this just to toot my own horn for a quick second. I said on our first preview show, this to me has the potential to be a 2007 to the 2008. The 2007 team goes 8-4 in the regular season. They beat OU at home. They go beat Virginia in the Gator Bowl. They get to 9-4. And then a lot of guys come back in return and, have a chance to play for Big 12 championship. I think depending on how the transfer portal goes, you don't know in this era, but if you get Jacoby Williams, Cameron Dickey, Caleb Douglas, Coy Aiken, John Carlos Miller, Baron Morton, and a improved offensive line and defensive line, you've got a chance. If we've learned anything this year, you can turn it around quick and you can compete in this conference. And I look forward to seeing us do that. And, this was a great year. So it was a fun game to watch. And I'm glad I just didn't have to have anxiety sitting on the couch watching it. So.
Yeah, dude, if you want the literal definition of a team quitting in the middle of a game, just turn on the West Virginia. I mean, that team was so uninspired after we caught that it was over. But Brennan, I think it's a great point. I think we do need to give our flowers to Taj. He finishes his career with over 5,000 yards from scrimmage for Texas Tech. I think 47 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 47 touchdowns. Dude has been an absolute animal for you. He will be missed. Your rushing game will not be as good next year. He was just very, very good for you.
Mm-hmm.
He will be one of the best running backs, probably top 3 all time for your team. Unbelievable player. You're going to miss some of those seniors. Good on you shouting out Conyers. I totally forgot to mention him. And then you got to play some of the young guys, man. How cool was that? I'm more of a pessimist on other areas, but on Will Hammond, dude, I'm like the eternal optimist. Like I was up standing, like even his throw that got batted down, I leaned over to my buddy. I said, dude, it just looks so good coming out of his hands though, right? Like that ball looked great.
Yep.
And the freshman that you've got, like, Jacoby, he looks different on the field. I hope we use him kind of like A&M used to use Achane, or how the Dolphins use Achane. Like, he can be a real weapon for you. I cannot believe he was playing 2A football last year. He must have been an absolute menace. He was probably completely unstoppable. But he is going to be a very good player for you, and played a lot as a freshman, oddly enough. I wonder how that happened. But yeah, really, really, really proud of the team. I'll be excited to see where we go in the bowl game, and happy on how it turned out.
Okay, Clayton, you've got 15 minutes to bring a subtle Micah Hudson dig in. Zyler and Conrad have both executed them perfectly, so we'll see where it can come in here, because they've done phenomenal. Yeah, Clay, I mean, we'll get into a lot of the future of Texas Tech guys and Hammond, but, it is kind of fun to watch. I mean, you see Jacoby get the football, and then 0.5 seconds, he's 6 yards ahead of the field. Hammond can do a read option and shimmy his way into the end zone. And, Ponton looks like a freaking beast. So, I mean, how excited are you seeing some of these young guys? Does it make you more excited for 2025 than you were in 2024?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm excited for all of them. I think it's gonna hurt to lose the seniors. Josh Kelly specifically on offense. I mean, we have to shout out Josh Kelly as well.
Totally forgot about him.
Best receiver that we've had in a while, probably 2018 or 2017. But yeah, I mean, Jacoby Williams, the same way that the ball just looks different coming out of Hammond's hands, like him coming off of the line of scrimmage on that 3rd and 6 where we ran it, dude, I swear he got the first down in 0.5 seconds. It just looks different when he's in there than it did with Taj. And that's not a dig on Taj, but he just has a burst that Taj doesn't have. So yeah, I'm excited to see him and Dickey hopefully split the load next year.
Yeah, I want to see a deserving player wear number 1 for our offense next year. So I hope Jacoby gets that number and rocks it with pride for the rest of his career at Texas Tech. I do need to say this as well, that Barron has taken a lot of heat from the Red Raider fan base this year, and he played incredibly well on Saturday, over 3,000 yards for the season, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I remember texting you guys during the game, if I told you Barron had these stats, would you have taken it? Zyler said, I would have taken it if you told me he started every game. He did that, and he had incredible stats. I mean, 27 touchdowns, again, 8 interceptions, single-digit interceptions. I mean, what a season, Sure, had some bad parts, had some lulls, but everybody does. It's you can't expect perfection from your guys, but Barron overall, great quarterback for you. I think he showed you I hope he gets healthy if he's not already. I think I just want him to rest, and because that shoulder injuries don't just go away overnight. So I just hope he's ready to go for next year and everything's all right, because he showed you he's got talent, he's got ability, he's a leader for your team. Joey even said in his presser that he's never seen a player transform his body like Barron did last offseason with their strength staff. And he also mentioned that he has grown so much as a leader. And so I think people underestimate maybe even how much Barron Morton means to your football team. So really excited that you have another year of him and think he's going to come lead you to great things in 2025.
Yeah, and that's something we'll get into the next couple of weeks, Z, on maybe Barron's not playing in the bowl game. Maybe we get a whole game of Will. Maybe we get a whole game of Jacoby and Dickey and some of these guys. It'll be fun. We'll see. I almost kind of want to see it in a way. So,
I mean, there's rumors that he's going to get that. If he does need surgery, do not go play in the Rate Quest Bowl or whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, we go get blown out by Rutgers or something. Like, who cares? Like, go get healthy. Let's run it back in 25. Let's let Will get the reps. Like, go get surgery now and get ready for spring ball if you can make it back in time. If not, you'll be ready for summer. There are rumors that is what's going to happen. So if you're listening this far, we'll say that now. There is a chance that Barron's not your starter in the bowl game. And if he does need surgery, I hope that's what he does. I think that's best for your long-term future.
And the job is his. I mean, he proved he's the guy. I will say that in my opinion. Z,
what do you say?
I think
Z,
he's.
I'm just saying.
Go ahead, Z. Wait, Conrad, hop off real quick.
If I am Barron, I do not want Will to get a full game. I just think I would. I don't want the public to see that, even though that's not really what matters.
Dude, here's the thing, Conrad, and we'll get it, dude. We have all off season to get into this, and we have all this month as well because we got a lot of great content coming for you. But if Will goes out and balls out, and you're coming off shoulder surgery, I'd be a little worried. Barron did not do anything to lose his job per se. I'm not saying that this year. I'm just saying that, I think he'd probably be a little timid to be like, oh, I've got a bum shoulder, and Will Hammond goes and cooks Rutgers in a bowl game. I'm all for competition, dude. If Will Hammond is who CJ Baskerville said he was, who these guys, this Nick Fattig story that came out says, he is, these guys obviously think this kid is a future star. And if you've got that on your roster, just like we talked about with Hudson, and you feel like he is going to win you football games, it's fair to open up a competition. I'm not saying he should be your starter. I'm not jumping that gun yet. I'm just saying, if I'm Barrett, I wouldn't just assume you've earned the starting job if that kid is as advertised.
Yeah, the job's yours until it's not. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say this. I obviously want Will Hammond to be a star. Like, I obviously want that. I just think with what Barron's gone through here, what he did last year, every week, giving you a chance to win when he was absolutely not even close to 100%. And then after what he did this year, you don't give a team lead. You don't, I'm not saying he can't lose the job, but if the job's not clearly his by this point, I'm not saying Will's not going to be a great player for you. I think you may have some chemistry issues if you don't give a guy that threw 27 touchdowns, 8 picks, 3,000 yards. And, to be completely honest, Barron doesn't play almost perfect against Oklahoma State. You're losing that game. Losing that game. So you're not 8-4 without Barron Morton.
And so for me, it's not an anti-Barron thing.
I know there are people on this podcast that want to move to Will, and I get it. It's the new shiny toy. Like I get it, and I want Will to be.
Are you
a star.
talking to me?
No, he's not. He's talking to me.
To the microphone. To the microphone.
He's talking to me. Okay. Am I a little, like I mentioned this on an earlier show, am I a little butthurt that Barron Morton did not respond to my text after he gave me his cell phone number? Sure. Is it a little upsetting that my day was ruined because a 21-year-old kid did not respond to me? Yes. Does that mean that
says more about you than it does him?
Does that mean that I want him to suffer and not be our starting quarterback or be successful? Absolutely not.
Yes.
I'm just saying, if you've got a dude that CJ Baskerville, who is on our show, and if you haven't seen the show, go check it out. Episode 14, I believe. And if you, and he's sitting there in practice over phone going, bro, literally 10 minutes of the show, CJ Baskerville goes, bro, Will Hammond can sling it. Okay. I'm just saying, if guys know that's there, then you just open up a competition. If you're Barron and you got to go get the gun, fixed, and you've got to go get it under the knife for a bit, and Will Hammond's there like, all right, dude, I'm going to go ball out. I'd be a little nervous. That's all I'm saying. We can talk about it later. But if you want to
get rid of your best quarterback since 2016, then you go ahead and be my guest.
Okay, sorry, Barron Morton's better than McLean Carter and Henry Colombi and Jet Duffy and all these other dudes that literally probably couldn't start at Allen High School. I'm just
Hey, Jet Duffy was a dog on and off the field. We both know that.
I'm not discrediting Barron. I'm just
Okay.
saying that I'm not going to crown him like the GOAT, and that we shouldn't acknowledge that there's a stud that could be behind him. Don't know why.
There is a stud behind him, but Barron's a stud too.
Being attacked for this.
Hey, Barron, if you're listening this far into the show,
Barron's
just know
not
I will be
listening.
reaching out to you. I will take care of this. We will smooth things over. I will take you to dinner to make up for what Brennan has done against you on this podcast. So
Clayton, back me up, man.
Yeah.
Give me,
Dude,
you've been sitting there.
I kind of agree with both of y'all. I mean, it would suck for Barron, like after the season that he had. And you mentioned 27 touchdowns. He easily could have had like 33. I can literally name 5 or 6 touchdowns that either got called back on BS penalties or drops.
Yep.
But at the same time, like Brennan's saying, like, the people around the Chiefs were hearing about Patrick Mahomes in practice whenever Alex Smith was the quarterback. And then when they went to him, people still thought they were stupid. So it goes both ways. If Hammond really is this good, it's tough to keep him off the field for another full season.
sure.
We do. So, I'm very pro Will Hammond. I still love Barron Morton. He deserves to be the starter next year. He had an excellent season. We asked, can we please just have a quarterback stay healthy all year? And he managed to do that despite a very, porous offensive line at times. Barron had a wonderful season. Can't say enough about what that guy's pushing through. If he still is really hurt, man, shout out to you for doing that. I know that's not easy. But yeah, I just think it'll be interesting. That's a tough situation if you're Barron, because you want to get healthy, but also you've got a guy behind you that's pushing you. Do you want to actively take yourself out of the the number one spot for all those spring reps? Like, that's just a really tough situation. That's not a situation that I am envious of McGuire and Kitley for having to handle. Not going to be a fun one.
If Kitley's still here, he might get a head coaching job, and Will might go with him because Will's his boy. There's so much to find out that we need to know in the next 4 weeks. It's ever changing. The program could, like we just saw, we thought we were going to come discuss a happy West Virginia win, and here we are releasing this episode Monday morning, and half the conversation was your defensive coordinator and your 5-star recruit transferring. So it's going to change day to day. It's going to be wild, and we're going to be here for it all. And you got to make sure to like and subscribe because you're going to be able to get up-to-date news from the Broadway Shuffle. So, okay, we're going to table the Barron Will debate for May through August, and probably next Wednesday's episode as well. But we're going to go. I'm sure it'll just get brought up weekly now, and we'll be here for it.
Yeah.
So,
It'll be a daily segment.
Well, yeah, it's a day. Yeah, every day on the Broadway Shuffle, Barron Morton versus Will Hammond. Okay, a look ahead to next week. Tech basketball is at home. Basketball season's in full swing. We get to Paul Wednesday night. We'll be there to react to that on Thursday with much more football news as well. So we are going to end our show with our Tech trivia and our Tommy Tubervilles of the week. If you are new to the show and you've listened this far, we applaud you. Thank you for checking us out. We do a Tommy Tuberville of the week. Tommy, we consider to be a fairly large fraud in the history of Tech sports. So we like to go across the country and pick out some other fraudulent teams, coaches, message boards, or reporters, or whoever. It could be anybody. You never know when you could be picked by the Broadway Shuffle to be a Tommy Tuberville of the week. So Clayton, I will go to you first. Who is your TT of the week?
Yeah, my this one's
I tried that for the first time. That just didn't sound right.
Did not work.
Swing and workshopping
That
it.
did not work at all. But no one listens 58 minutes in, so I'm safe. All right, Clay, go ahead.
Yeah, my Tommy Tuberville, this one's a little bittersweet. I hate to have the friendly fire, but my Tommy Tuberville of the week are the Tech fans in the replies of the initial tweet announcing Tim DeRuyter's firing. Countless replies of like, oh, you misspelled Zach Kitley. Oh, this is the wrong coordinator. Wow, Joey McGuire is going to regret this. I saw someone say something like, wow, Joey's lucky he had North Texas and ACU on the schedule. Someone please show me an 8-win team where all 8 of those wins are Power 5 competition, please. Okay. Tim DeRuyter, let me read you off some of the other teams that are close to us in SP Plus on offense and then on defense. On offense, some of the other teams near us are South Carolina, A&M, Kansas State, BYU, Missouri, all those teams ranked going into this last weekend. Some of the teams nearest defensively, Washington State, West Virginia, Arizona, Rice, Hawaii, Florida International, Eastern Carolina. So you tell me where the problem was as far as our Texas Tech football team this year.
Yep.
So all that being said, Texas Tech Twitter users and those comments, you're my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
Very well done.
Good job. We're here to keep our fan base accountable as well, too. And sometimes we have to do that. It's friendly fire, but it's needed. All right, Z, who's your Tommy Tuberville of the week? I'll skip the TT for you.
Yeah. This one's been a long time coming. There is one particular institution in this state that deserves this award more than anybody else, and it's our friends down in College Station. Just a couple reasons why, we could go down the laundry list of, why this institution deserves to be the Tommy Tuberville of the week, but it all culminated with UT coming back into town. You'll notice when the Aggies left to go to the SEC, they initially only had one national championship in August of 2012, but in September of 2012, they actually added two national championships, one in 1919 and one in 1927, both added retroactively from a new computer system that they found. So that was really cool. They also claimed a bunch of false Big 12 titles that year. One was when they went to the Big 12 title game and got destroyed by Nebraska. And then one year in 2010, they finished for a three-way tie in the South Division and didn't even go to the title game. They also claim that as a Big 12 title. They leave the Big 12 and go to the SEC to get away from Texas. I understand that. That's completely understandable. They had 13 years to make an SEC title game, and they had their big moment this past Saturday. UT came back into town, and they proceeded to get absolutely whipped on national television. It was not a close game. It should have been 31-0. They couldn't stop Texas from making the SEC championship game in their first year in the conference. That's got to be incredibly humbling. You will always be a second-class citizen in this state. Texas A&M, you are my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
Well done. That deserves an Oscar. I mean, that was, gosh, man, it was fun watch. I hate UT more. I really do, but I knew A&M wasn't built. It's like clearly UT's number one on the enemy list. But yeah, it sucks because like A&M thinks, to your point, Z, like they think they're that. And even, little brother over here in West Texas with our horse butt face to you, we're stomping you before you walked out the door.
Historically, A&M is much closer to us than A&M is to Texas. We are much more similar than they are to.
They're just centrally located with a bigger stadium, but
and they get puff money.
Yes,
puff money. You can't forget that. That's the real kicker.
Okay, Conrad.
I'll be on record. I like A&M much more than UT. A&M's fan base actually attended the school that they root so hard for. They actually, do seem to be genuine nice people. At least from all the Aggies I know, they're nice people. All the Longhorns just shop at Walmart and buy all the merch that, says I love Texas. I love Texas. I don't know that you really even went to Texas. You probably didn't. But that's neither here nor there. I digress. I was sad A&M, not sad, but disappointed A&M lost to Texas because Texas gets that's a different conversation too.
I'll never be sad about an A&M loss.
Yep, never. We finished with the same record.
I just wish they would have won. I wish they would have beat Texas. Like that's a whole different thing. But
Conrad, that's a good point. Ahead. I have A&M friends too. I actually have a lot of A&M friends, and I actually really like them. They're a lot of fun. They're good people. But yeah, it's just it's tough.
Well, and they believe their school maybe to a point that's some would call delusion, but that's totally okay because they genuinely seem to be like nice people. Like I'm cool with that.
I don't like where this conversation is going. I don't like that we're even being nice to A&M here.
Dude,
we gotta be truthful on the Broadway Shuffle, man.
One of the worst days of my sporting life was when I found out that Jimbo Fisher got fired because I used to love watching Jimbo Fisher post-game press conferences when they lost. That was some of the best entertainment college football could offer. That dude had no idea what was going on, and I was looking forward to him being the coach for like 10 more years. That was genuinely a devastating day for my fandom.
Okay, Conrad, I'm sorry to interrupt you, man. The positivity on it, either of the, it's like, I'm not here for it,
My positivity towards A&M is coming from my hate for Texas.
Okay.
That's fair. Where that comes from. So, But for my Tommy Tuberville of the week, I'm going to go north. I'm going to travel to the great state of Ohio. Ohio State and Michigan played in the game on Saturday. And this was the year that many Ohio State fans were optimistic that they could finally beat Michigan after losing to Jim Harbaugh these past few years and J.J. McCarthy and that whole stud-loaded team that they had over there in Michigan that won the national title last year, as well as Connor Stallions was not on the Michigan sideline too, so that made a difference. Or did it? So I'll go with Ryan Day for my Tommy Tuberville of the week, head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Man, you're 1-4 against Michigan. You lost to the worst Michigan team in what? I don't know, 5-6 years maybe. I mean, maybe even longer than that. Michigan's not a great team this year, but somehow, some way in that rivalry game, they went into Columbus, Ohio. Will Howard looked not very good. If you saw Kyle McCord, he was the former Ohio State quarterback, his press conference from last night, he plays for Syracuse now. Somebody asked him, the day after you beat Miami, how does this, or the day you beat Miami, how does this feel? And he said, knowing that Ohio State lost, and he goes, some things come full circle. So Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes, you are my Tommy Tuberville of the week.
First two-time Tommy Tuberville of the week, Ryan Day, the Michael Jordan of James Franklin's. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Ryan Day. We'll send you a trophy once you lose in the first round of the playoffs. So, well, one team that's not getting to the playoff, my segues are seriously improving here today. You guys are setting me up well. Miami Hurricanes. At least I don't think you're going to make the playoff because you lost to Syracuse and you're up 21-0. And so Miami, no ranked wins this year. They really should have lost to Cal on the road. They could have lost to Louisville, who also went 8-4 this year.
Tyler Shuck.
Yep. And then you lost to Syracuse up in central New York and potentially missed out. Well, you missed out on an ACC championship game, and you probably missed out on a playoff because we know that Greg Sankey and ESPN and the SEC are colluding, and communism is forming within the sport, and that some sort of Bama South Carolina mix will get in over them. So Miami Hurricanes, you had your opportunity. The U is not back, and you are my Tommy Tuberville of the week. So, yep.
Great one, Brennan.
You down. So, well, guys, that was a ton of fun. That was a lot more than expected. I was thinking about when we woke up to potentially have this conversation tonight. I thought we were just going to bask in the first 8-win season and talk about all this fun stuff, and a lot to digest here this week. So we'll be back Wednesday night. Tech plays at 8 p.m. So we'll have an episode for you on Thursday, and we will look for potential emergency episodes depending on what happens this week with other transfers or quarterback news and stuff. So for all of our episodes, we had on Robert Giovanetti last week, the Texas Tech senior associate athletic director, with a great conversation with him. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. You can follow us at the Broadway Shuffle, a Texas Tech sports podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode in the future. So Conrad, Clayton, Zyler, I'm Brennan. We will see you guys on Thursday. And man, 8 wins. Wreck 'em.